I think I hear you, but I think the times have changed. I think what we require has changed. It's like the conversation about people not caring about the Oscars. Movies themselves are declining, right? Yes, it's the high stakes are, yes, it's a piece of, it's like looking at a piece of art and saying, wow, the Van Gogh and blah blah blah. Yes, I get that from that perspective. But to the basic average man who doesn't care about watching a Dunes on in a movie theater and wants to watch it on their phone, which this is what the Gen Zers are doing. They watch these things on their cell phones. They don't watch it on even computers. They don't care.
I'm saying about not caring. This is the key about it. This is the fundamental thing. It's about quality and quantity. It's like what Scorsese was saying about Marvel movies being like theme parks. You can have as many of these films, like you can watch them on YouTube, Netflix, so on. Why is it that Netflix what desperately wants Oscars recognition and touts it so much? Why is it that Netflix can make so many films, but they always execute a certain number of projects that are the Oscars bids each year? Because they know they too buy into that perception of that political perception of prestige. Because once you do that, the way people talk about you is different. So you can have all these things that you have about the way people watch films, what people like. Why is it that after the speed at which it's gone through, that you move on, it's like this, it's like this. But for some strange reason, they bring out Bridgerton, everyone stops because you're tapping into what Jane Austen started. Once you do something of a certain quality, it will last forever. People will keep coming back and coming back. And I want to do my version of, I want to do the remake of, I want to do the reboot of. Why is it we live in the era of reboots? Because people realizing you're not making quality anymore. Why in God's name is Patrick Stewart doing a Star Trek series at his age, and it's one of the best ones out there? Because when a director steps forward, they call the guys they know they can execute. Todd Phillips is doing a Joker film. He wants De Niro. The guy who did Silver Linings Playbook, he wants De Niro. This person makes a film, they want to get Pacino because there are certain things you cannot find an actor who can do it. That is why people like Benedict Cumberbatch are so precious to directors, because the way Benedict Cumberbatch models himself is on that style. The Ian McKellens, the Royal Shakespeare Company, he models himself on that. He's not doing the modern acting of today because he doesn't act like a Bradley Cooper or an Ashton Kutcher or any of these other, or Ryan Reynolds. He's
Yeah.
doing classic theatrical acting. So when
So
people make films, they call him.
so here's what I will say. I don't think Will Smith lost anything because personally I never saw him in terms of like when I think about the art of cinema and I look at it like the way that I would look at a painting, I never saw him in that lane, you know. And he was never, and I'm not trying to dog him or anything because I think he's an incredible movie star, blockbuster movie star, and I think he's an incredible influencer. And I think as a celebrity, he has more impact with influencing than he would ever have being a whatever the famous whatever, because I just think those things that we put on those pedestals from the past, they're not relevant today. Just like you could say the same thing about the royal family, but I digressed. But my thing is, I never looked at Will Smith like a fine actor, like an artist. So I don't think he lost anything. I think that if he did gain that and they did put him there, then that position almost is diluted. And I'm
No,
not
no,
saying
no,
this
no,
is,
this is the key. This is what it is. This is what it's about, because you're completely right. That's why I made that the differentiation. There are actors and there are movie stars, and rarely you get one that's both. Will Smith is a movie star. He's not an actor. I completely agree. I never saw him as an actor. I'm not calling you if I've got a script. But the key about this film, which is why it was such a big deal, and that's what I mean about what he's lost. You happened to tap into the right role in the right way at the right time where people get to look at you differently. With this role, they might talk about you like an actor. If you do win the Oscar, now the next time that a Scorsese or a David Fincher or an Aronofsky is making a film, they'll be like, I remember that King Richard performance. It was an Oscar winning performance. I think I even voted for it. Call him in to do an audition. Because make no mistake about it, for all his star power, there are scripts that Will Smith's agents cannot get him to read for because the director doesn't believe he has the skill.
You're forgetting that Will Smith owns his own production company. Most of the movies he does, they're his films. Will Smith has the So here's the thing: Will Smith has the influence to pull up an incredible script and bring
King
that's what I'm saying.
Richard. But if you speak to him, you really think that in Will Smith's life, he does not dream of being the kind of actor that Spielberg picks up the phone to call, or Scorsese picks up the phone to call.
For sure.
David, yeah, because look at the way he talks. He wishes he was that echelon of actor. But people like you and me, people don't see him that way.
And we don't have to.
That's what I mean by that's what this film would do. King Richard, he generated and he made it himself. People will now see you that way, and you may get those. You'll start to get those.
I think sometimes it's okay just to accept that you're not. Netflix is never going to be AMC. Netflix is never going to be able. I know all the noise that they make. They're never going to be HBO. They're never going to do it. I'm sorry. And so, but my question is, do they need to? No, because they have their own lane. They are more impactful than all those things that I just named in their own right, in their own lane, and with their own direction and decisions. So when I look at Will Smith, yes, I never even saw him like that. He might want to dream about it, but that's not what's in the cards for you. And now you've really blown it. And you blew it when you first started talking, doing Red Table Talk, having discussions about your marriage. You blew it already. I just think it's never meant for him, and it's fine, and that's okay. That's my point. It's okay, because you're still great in your own right.
That's you because, but unfortunately, in the hearts of these stars, think about there's so many names that you can pull out of the hat about actors who, on the outside, you had a great career, but they will tell you, I always wanted to do this and they didn't get it. I always wanted to do that. Everyone from Brad Pitt right across the gamut. There's always that thing you couldn't get. Beyonce, we were talking about. We've heard all the stories that she wants to be an EGOT. She wants to win an Oscar. She was saying she's willing to do allegedly willing to do nudity. She wants, but you're not the person because they're not calling you. They gave you Dreamgirls, which was literally an Oscar on a plate. Jennifer Hudson beat you.
Beyonce's an EGOT. They're just trying to. Beyonce is beyond an EGOT. They're just trying to hold a black woman. That's what I see there. Beyonce. How can they?
It's like for everything she is, being an actress is eluding her, and that's something she wants. Same with Will Smith. For everything you are, he wants to be in the Denzel conversation. He wants to be the person that the greatest directors of all time call you to audition. Those guys see Will Smith like you see Will Smith and I see Will Smith. They're not calling you for their scripts because they don't believe you have the chops. What King Richard was meant to do is him self-generating this project that no one would ever give him. He gave himself to prove this is the kind of actor I can be. And he gets the Oscar and he enters that conversation. He shouldn't want to, he shouldn't need it, but he does. Because again, it plays into perception.
I hear you, but I think once you enter the comedy landscape, that's number one. And once you show too much of your life, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. To me personally, I don't look at these award shows like, oh my God, it's the Mecca or whatever. I don't look at it like that. But I'm just talking about in terms of branding. Once you do those things, you're just not going to really be respected in those spaces.
Think of the people who broke the mold. That thing about it was always like, if you do comedy, no.
Jonah Hill.
No, forget about Jonah Hill. Until Robin Williams and Jim Carrey. Remember when Robin Williams did Good Will Hunting? On the back of that, Christopher Nolan called him for insomnia. And they called him to do 24-hour photo. And everyone was like, flaming heck, this guy is good. That's what Will Smith is attempting to do, where you redefine who you are to broaden the conversation that you're capable of. Same as Jim Carrey, where really Cable Guy and Ace Ventura, but then he did that film with Kate Winslet. where he played like a druggy punk, and everyone's like, the guy terrified me in the film. And since then, everyone saw him a different way.
Fair
But that's
enough.
what okay, that's what because for all of this, who's more successful than Jim Carrey when it came to comedy? But these guys all want everything. They want to have it all. And
Fair
Will Smith
enough.
is the same. You want to have it all because the kinds is like what they talk about Jay-Z, the kinds of rooms you can enter.
Is-
Hollywood is so like the mafia. And that's what this comes down to. It comes to politics because why is the Oscars is irrelevant. When you look at the landscape, it's irrelevant. But why do people care so much about it? Because what goes on behind the scenes is what the real power of the Oscars. The publicists, the agents, the directors, the PR, the money, the contracts, the endorsement. That all comes from the power network that's centered around the Oscars. Because if you go back to the days of the studio system, MGM, Mr. Mayer, and Mr. Goldwyn, all of those guys who controlled what the Oscars were, it was about power broking and money. It all boils down to money and who has power. So that's what the Oscars is about. So for everybody else saying that you don't need it, it's irrelevant. People will always need a Grammy. They will always need an Oscar because it's like running for president. There are certain rings you have to kiss to become the candidate for each presidency.
Let me just acknowledge that the Oscars is own. It's not even 100 years old. Like so, it's a baby. It's I just think that I think because the media landscape has changed so much that we look at something that was less than 100 years old as though, oh my god, that is the issue. But there was a time when the Oscars didn't exist, and so to me it's a very young award show, right? Media, film, it's all young, you know, and things are evolving so quickly.
It's like about age and vintage and pedigree. Why on earth in 2022 is a Van Gogh or a Rembrandt or a Monet still the most expensive paintings you can own? Because all the way back then they were the most beautiful and they still exist to this day. So that's part of what the Oscars is built on. Like all the way back then we're the number one and we still exist to this day. But so even when you let's say, because in my head Netflix should start the new Oscars because based on the nature of the kind of business it is, you're catering for what the world of entertainment is now. So as they started the Oscars in the Roosevelt Hotel all those years ago, you need to start something now that will cater to the digital evolution that's going to snowball over the next few years. But the Oscars will still exist
For
because what
sure.
the Oscars exists for is the
Vintage
kinds of filmmakers that this world is just not generating, which is
anymore.
for me is tragic. But i.e., this what the modern filmmakers aren't storytellers. You're paint by numbers. It's almost like what happened with music, where
Mm.
to make music back in the day, you have to play an instrument. But
Mm-hmm.
then by the time you got to the Timberland generation, you just have to be good with a computer. So
Right.
it's like it blew my mind. Where it's like, why is it that I listen to a Michael Jackson record and every time I hear it, I can hear a new instruments that Quincy Jones put in the production? That's a musician making music.
Right.
No one can match that. So with people like Scorsese and Spielberg, it doesn't matter how many Will Packers you give me, you can't make films like them because what motivates them is something that just doesn't exist anymore. The way their minds think, it doesn't exist anymore. So the Oscars will always stand because there are few, they're not as many anymore, but there are the Todd Phillipses that exist today, the Aronofskys that exist today, the Guillermo del Toros that exist today, that fashion that the Pong Joon-ho's that exist today, that fashion their style on those people. So they're the ones who Oscars will always recognize. And then Netflix should do what they do. But what Netflix is trying to do is be both. Because if you can snag Scorsese, you're on a serious level. Because for you to be able to do that, you're saying, I will let you do whatever you want.
Right.
That is the only way you snag Scorsese. Because Scorsese was probably looking at Netflix and going, bye, Felicia. But they were like,
Mm-hmm.
how much money do you want? You've got it. What do you want to do? It's yours. And he's like, oh, okay, if you're going to make my life easy, that's all an artist wants. Give me space and provisions, and I'll.
I think there are a lot of people. I feel like there are a lot of studios that would do that for him anyway. But I think the way I look at
I remember in an interview, he said that he went to everyone. They wouldn't give him the money because of the technology, or the
ah
de-aging technology. They wouldn't give him the money.
so okay, but I think the way I look at the Oscars is the same way I look at the royal family. Um, You see what I'm saying? Like, I get what you're saying, but they're sort of like the pinnacle. I look at the royal family as the pinnacle of white supremacy, and that bridge is coming tumbling down. Now, the benefits of the Oscars is that they did not commit any crimes to humanity, right? It's art at the end of the day, but it's still a symbolism of white supremacy and the how would I describe it? I guess in the art world, it's still a symbol of the white supremacy, and I do enjoy this Oscars. When they were doing inclusion, it wasn't just about black people, but it was about women, it was about disabled people. They approached inclusion in a very different way. Yeah, and I think a lot of people might feel like because they did this, the show was, they were only giving awards to like inclusive people or whatever, but I mean, I guess I don't see it that way.
No, because it's like you actually bang on. It's exactly like the royal family. But in Britain, the key thing about the royal family, I don't even know why they exist. I really don't. It boggles my mind every time I see them. I'm like, you're so expensive to run, but so pointless in practicality. And it's like,
Right.
like, what are you? But then I was talking to my brother and he outlined it. The reason why the monarchy will never go anywhere is because it's like a food chain. As long as they exist, the point he made of white supremacy, no matter how much I achieve and who I am, some random, uneducated white thug that's drunk outside a pub on a Saturday night can look at me, call me and say, go back to where you came from. Because in his mind, as long as I am white, I'm better than you. And that comes from the fact that at the very tippy top is those guys.
Right.
That's the power that filters down. So that's the kind of
Mm-hmm.
point I was making about why a Denzel must always stand for African American people in America. Because it's like a power, it's like having the bat signal. It sends out power and everybody picks a morsel of it. Because even in me in the UK here, working in fashion and working in TV and film, look, I can tell you the dazzling things that people have done where they wince away that when I'm around them. When you're walking down the street, they walk away from you. But you will always get that one white person that in their racism, they'll think that maybe she's like Viola Davis. Maybe she's like Denzel. And they'll give you an opportunity thinking that you can be their Denzel or you can be
Right.
their Viola. That's
Right.
the power I collect from Denzel existing.
I understand. I understand. And Beyonce and all these people represent being a being the squeaky clean black person. But my issue with that, and it goes into this idea, and I brought this up in another video. It goes into this idea that like, as black people, they treat us like we're children. You have to be the child that is always good on your best behavior, and if you're not on your best behavior, you deserve a spanking, you deserve to be ridiculed, you deserve to be scolded. And I think the energy that's going around is I don't want to have to live up to whatever perceptions that you have. Screw your perceptions. I can be flawed. I am a human being. And what I enjoyed about the Will Smith situation is that he showed his humanity and he conveyed it to them where they understood his humanity, because they don't like to look at us as humans. So whether he got the award or not, that moment was so much more important for black culture and black people. So much more important than that, and beyond the award show, he showed our humanity to the world. So, as much as I might not, and I get it from the artistic perspective, but I think what is required in this era, in this digital era, is that human element, is the way that you build a following, is by showing your personality, showing who you are. And I think from a social setting, he has still achieved a lot for even the person that's walking down the street and to recognize you, because I saw Will Smith's humanity when his wife was insulted and he went to defend his wife's honor. Every man wants to do that. So I think his humanity was shown, and it was a good thing anyway. But go on.
I think that, I mean, like I've always found Will Smith problematic. That's why I haven't publicly gone hard for saying that on that level, it was a great thing to see. As a Black woman, that was a great thing to see.
And any woman, any person,
No,
it
but
was good
no
for
other
all of
women
us,
go through what we go through.
which is
No other
true.
women go through what we. So the resonance was for Black women, particularly the dynamics of that situation. So the thing about that, it's my own issues about the way things are executed, because the reason I just didn't like it happening at the Oscars is I never want to give racist white people, like with the power brokers, what they want. Will Smith gave them what they want. It gave them a justification of what their behavior has been thus far. Now they have a ticket to say, like, this is why we didn't include them. We've said all these things you call cliches and all the what's it called tropes we have about him that's racist. But at the end of the day, then Mr. Nice Guy, Mr. Perfect, Mr. Decent did that at his moment. So what else do you need? What else do you need? Like we've talked.
Which, like, let me explain. I hear what you're saying and I get that, but I will say that they no longer have control anymore. I say in the next less than 100 years, white supremacy will die. So irrespective of whether they can say, I told you so, they're falling on deaf ears.
No, like the problem is that, which is why you have sick things like the abortion bill in America, why people are being bred out.
That's yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if they approve it or not, whatever, because at the end of the day, as long as there's an awareness around the world for even non-white people, this awareness, they say awareness is 90% of the solution or recovery. Awareness, 90%. What Will Smith did triggered a conversations like what we are having right now, conversations for Black people to see what this is, and white people alike. So now we get to point our finger exactly at white supremacy, which was, like I described before, the invisible figure that we don't know what it exists, but we defend it at all costs. Every single one of us in this society, in this world, have white supremacy in us, in everything that we do. And it's only those that are aware. You have to look within and remove the white supremacy in you. Even us as Black people.
Oh gosh, we're terrible. That's why I said is that it's the easiest con and the worst con I've ever seen. That you just implanted this idea of white supremacy in the minds, and Black people are self-perpetuating it, because even like that thing you're saying about the dynamic between Black men and Black women, and every 6 hours one of us is killed by a Black man
in America. Yeah.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with someone and I said, if I had a daughter, they asked me, would I want her to marry a Black man? And I said, if he was African, if I had raised her in Africa and she had an African sensibility and so on, I'd have no problem. Great, because the way African men behave is the way Black men should behave, where it's like we have
You protect your women, right?
but
Yeah.
they protect their women, they protect their mothers. So I'd be great. But if they lived in the West like me and were raised in the West, I cannot say that I would condone that, because in my mind, when I look at all the reference points for the way Black men behave, like it was my brother who told me that, look at every famous Black man in America.
All white women, light skinned.
White women,
Right.
except for Denzel and Samuel L. Jackson. That's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. But then that's just seen as aspirational, what you are. And so it's like, so when you're thinking to yourself that with this whole dynamic that the Will Smith thing had, what is it actually going to change? Like, for all the conversation we have, what is it actually going to change? Because why it bothered me that it happened at the Oscars so much is, number one, the destruction of the legacy that was meant to happen with the handover from Denzel to Will Smith, which has been going through this whole award season. That broke my heart. My heart broke for Denzel. And then the other thing was that, is this the arena that this conversation should be happening in? Because Why does it take doing it at the white guy's house for us to be having this level of global conversation? Like, I'm seeing like friends on ITV News, on Australian news, on all the like European news discussing it and talking about black hair and so on.
Let me explain why. No, let me explain why it needs to be done at the white man's house, because they are the ones that created it. They are the ones that created it, and they are involved in the resolution of it. And let me explain to you why it's important to have this conversation. Because I said again, awareness is 90% of the solution. Black women raise black men. Black women, you can't do anything about the people that are grown up now. You may be able to fix the ones that are 21 and above. The 21, yes. We can change the consciousness, the understanding of the black children that are born now. We can change that. We can even possibly affect the people between 21 to 35 and above, maybe, but we can change that. And that consciousness, black women, black men need to have this awareness so that when they're raising their children, they change how they raise their children. And that's why this is important.
So I'm going to ask you a question. With the energy that you have and whatever length of life you have left, would you willingly invest in trying to make black men better?
The boys, black boys that are being born, absolutely. This is why I do this. This is why I do this content in the first place.
It's like,
right.
Why is it that, when we talk about learned behavior, you can never substitute the role of a father for a boy. You just can't. And the minute that influence comes in, it's so elemental, it's so powerful, it overrides anything you can tell them. So that's why I say, like, it's great when you see boys who are raised by a woman exclusively, because yet again, the father failed to actually do the job.
No, this is okay. I'm not taking this approach. I'm not taking this approach because when I talk about awareness, everybody is having these conversations. Not all black men behave like Chris Rock. Not all black men agree with Chris Rock. Black men listen to these videos that these women talk about. So the awareness is not just about the black women. It's also about the black men that say, yes, he defended his wife, and he should, because there's going to be a large percentage of black men that understand the need to protect your wife. And even if they don't agree with what transpired on that event, to some degree, those people that are emotionally intelligent, those people that understand these things, they're still going to want to implement it, and it makes them have this consciousness when they're raising their sons. Hey, young boy, protect your women. And that's what is important. You see what I'm saying? The fathers that get to be around their sons, let them have the awareness of this. You might not practice it, but you will teach, because a lot of people that may be the most abusive, maybe the most whatever, they might act like one way, but what they preach is completely different.
See, I don't shoot anyone that much benefit of the doubt, because when like you were saying about the most powerful thing is media. Between films and music and comedy and every television, look at the kind of imagery that's pumped out about the black male, black female dynamic. If it's a love story, it's got to be struggle love.
Okay, so here's one thing I'll say about media. I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is a very important thing. YouTube, TikTok is more impactful than any of those art forms have ever been. Because what art inspires, influences. These videos that are going around YouTube actually educate directly. And they are far more popular, get way more views, and way more attention of our minds. I can't tell you the last time I sat down and watched a movie or even a TV show, but I'll tell you YouTube that I watch it 24, like literally all the time.
See, but like I love YouTube because I love following black female influencers, particularly African American ones, because they're so on the money. People like I Am Aloho and For the Love of Harriet and Chrissy and all these people, and you just see, it's weird to think that so many Black women are thinking exactly the same thing about all these things that happen. But then it bothers me that when you look at the way Black men react to them, it's horrifying. And these aren't old men. These
So
are teenagers.
here's the thing, though, because you have to when this Black consciousness on social media, it's a spectrum. You're gonna have people all the way on the left, the women all the way on the left. You're gonna have the women all the way on the right, and then you're gonna have the women in the middle, and the men in the middle. I tend to watch everything, but don't be confused or negate the fact that the men in the middle are there. The men in the middle are just as, if not more, influential than the men on the other side. So these conversations, when we're having healthy discussion, healthy discord with men and women alike in the middle, because even the women in the far on the other side, they're just as bad, if not worse, than the men that do these things. They're just as bad. So when you go to the middle and you see the people that in the middle, at the end of the day, they're teaching you about how to have healthy relationships in your life. So it's at the end of the day, yes, some people are going to, fall into the trap. But when you live an unhealthy life, you follow the path of this person that tells you to behave in an unhealthy way, there are going to be repercussions. You're going to suffer the consequences of that, right? So I think at the end of the day, yes, I get you, but because there's a balance and there's a diversity of content, there's always the opportunity for people to go the right way.
I mean, I think it's I'm just an old cynic, really, because because I play back. I just look at my cousins, like they're like dating age and so on now, and some of them are in America, some of them are here, some of them are like the rest are in Europe, and like my heart just hurt because inside me, I wish like we could all find the perfect Black man, and then everyone's happy, and then it's like a Disney ending, yada yada yada. But the reality of it is that I would be terrified if any of them, for their age groups, came back home with a Black man of their age group, because I'm just waiting for the moment where he switches. Because you're all apple pie, and then until you're look at this, the right thing to trigger you, and I call it the godfather syndrome. At the beginning, there's the wedding, and then it turns out her husband is like a wife-beating psychopath. Is that the minute like you've gotten what you want, then they see the real you. That's what terrifies me.
Well, I don't agree with that, because I mean, you have brothers, I have brothers. I see some of the.
So make no mistake about it, we are the minority. I used to think that there were so many people like us until I went looking for some, and it was pretty harrowing, the kind of backlash I get from the way I think.
I don't know. I think that in the world, I tend to find that it's like 33%. You're gonna get 33% shit or trash, 33% in the middle, and 33%, good. And so it's about, where do you lie, right? You attract what you are. Are you like, if this is what you're attracting, what does that say about you? Is there things that you need to go and look at and fix from within? You see what I'm saying? So like, I hear what you're saying, but I have hope. I'm an optimist. I do believe. I don't necessarily look at it like from a selfish, I want to call it selfish, but it's not about me and what I gain, right? But I think about it from the world. Even when I die, what can I do? How can I contribute to help the world even when I'm dead? Right. And so when I look at it from that lens, I do see there's so many benefits with social media and the way it goes. There's so many benefits.
It's fantastic.
Has helped us get to where we are as Black people.
I always talk about it like Gen Y and Gen Z, particularly for Africans, is the most beautiful thing I've seen, because you've got the most audacious generation I've ever experienced or read about, where it's like, they're just fearless. You're absolutely fearless. Because look at like the Letitia Wright's generation. You can't tell them no. I can become a millionaire on YouTube. I can become a millionaire on Instagram. I could do this. I'm going to make a film. I'm going to build a rocket. And I'm just like, no one's going to tell me no. And I love that so much
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you trying to tell like our parents to think that way is just like banging your head against a brick wall.
No, because they didn't live in that time, and there are a few things that come into play. It's not just having access. I mean, it comes from just having access to information. We're in the information era now. As long as you can get access to information, you can build the life that you want. And even this even goes down to people that should be living in extreme poverty, right? Because when you think about inclusion, we're only thinking about those that are able to afford to live in the West or live an upper to middle class standard. Because before the information, there were so many more people living in extreme poverty. They don't even have the privilege of having these types of discussions that we're having about whether a man should act like this or not. They're thinking about, how am I going to get food? How am I going to feed my children, right? But now,
Ricky Gervais's comment about the Oscars, that they asked him if they had gotten you to host, and he made this what would you have said with the whole Chris Rock fiasco? And he said something along the lines of, I wouldn't be wasting my time with all of this debate. I'd be talking about the fact that if you're really talking about diversity and inclusivity, where are the poor people? And I was like, yeah, he's right. Because when you talk about diversity and inclusivity, how come it never actually quite stretches to poverty?
Well, I don't know, because I think a lot of actors come from nothing. Like, we don't, they just because they're glitzed and glammed and dressed up, doesn't mean that, like, they're not living in their car, right? And they just haven't come out of living in their car. Like, there's so much homelessness and going on in Los Angeles, and people come from rags to riches almost instantly.
Thing where you're looking at the Oscars and they have a black director and a black, they're like, look at who they picked. Like, these guys have now established. So if you're really going to include a spectrum from a disabled person to a queer, LGBTQ Latina person and so on, where's the poor person in the audience? Where are the poor ticket holders? Where is the poor guy who's now directing? Where's the poor guy who's now the sound director, who's an amazing musician? Or where are the dancers who you got from a poverty-stricken, that are amazing dancers? Like, they all exist in poor neighborhoods, but your inclusivity doesn't quite stretch that far.
All right. Because no matter, like, that's what I think it's so interesting, because irrespective of white supremacy and what it does, the real people that are punished from all these systems are the poor. You know, and we don't, in the West, don't really know what poverty truly looks like.
Yeah.
We don't really know what it looks like, because what people consider to be poor in America, you're living in lavish privilege.
Yeah, that's why I say, like when you're saying about the poor in LA and so on, like, if you have a homeless person on the street, like, just look at the quality of the street.
Like, you have a pavement. Like, for example, there's an ATM. I think it's a Bank of America ATM, right? It's just one of those buildings that's just an ATM in it, and there's a homeless person that keeps going in there, going through the trash, and they sleep there at night, right? It's like down the street from where I am right now. You have the luxury of breaking into an ATM, building, going through trash. This trash, there's going to be some, even though the food is disgusting and spoiled, you're going to get food. You're not cooking rocks, with dirty water, with a fake pot that you maybe stole from somewhere. Who knows? This is what true, like, you still have privilege even in your poverty. So people don't really understand what true poverty looks like in these developed countries.
Yeah, I mean, like, because that's the thing that always strikes me. It's just, but then, it's like it's a whole rabbit hole, because
Right.
when you even think about it's too much to even delve into. When you even think about when people decide to help the needy of Africa, just the imagery and the rhetoric of what it looks like. Because, like, with the whole Ukraine thing, there was a person on BBC News that was saying, yes, what's happening in Ukraine is terrible, but I'm kind of busy right now with Yemen and Iraq and Iran and all the other places. It's like, and Syria, and what happened, the decimation in Brazil from COVID. I'm pretty busy. But obviously, when she then had these pictures on Instagram of all the pictures of what's going on in Yemen, and saying that, oh, are we not going to deal with this anymore? Are we not talking about this now? Oh, right. Okay, sure. But that just says it, because once you're so numb to seeing that suffering. The way I've seen people so emotively talk about Ukraine, because even the silly Prince William was saying that it's not used to seeing this kind of thing in Europe.
Which is ridiculous. This is so ridiculous because like just like the World War II was just like in the 40s, like World War I and II. So like I don't know what they're talking. Or World War II was in the 40s. World War I was in the 1910s, right? 1910, right? So to me, it's like that is your modern history. What are you talking about? Go talk to your grandmother and they'll tell you about their experiences watching white people suffer in these wars. So I mean, I guess it's just the privilege of ignorance. But I don't even want to talk about Ukraine. I don't want to talk about, like, I think I've given them too much airtime.
It's triggered me so much. That it's like to be racist. It's like, don't forget to pack your racism. No, there's a whole war going on.
Right.
Just toothbrush, medication, some pajamas, a change of underwear, and my racism. Let's go.
And my credit card, because I could still and this thing about donating to their fund, they still have digital bank accounts. Like they could leave and they can still have access to their money. Like they have money,
and they have Instagram accounts, and they're on the internet,
and they have phones that work. Like I actually, it's like, look, when I think about the Russian people who like MasterCard has pulled out, Visa has pulled out. There are people that are stranded in Thailand that don't have access to their money. They lost their money. But you, like in Ukraine, we live in a digital era. You have access. Maybe something happened to the banks and I don't know what, but you can still have access to your finances in some way, shape, or form. So for me, I don't know. I think it's
whatever. Exactly, like
whatever. Okay, I think we've been going on for quite a while, an hour and 24 minutes so far. So great conversation.
Moving of location probably has leads a lot of
Yes, great conversation. Thank you for coming on again. And guys, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above, and see you next time.